Okay, so my name is Leonardo Zizzamia, and today let's do some tasty benchmark. I'm going to talk about ngTasty and building high-performance measurable directive. So I work at Twitter. We do a lot of stuff with Angular, especially for internal tools. And recently, every team is like a custom solution for we just build different share component. And in September, I start writing this collection of UI component named ngTasty. And one of the main goals was actually, because in my team we have like few internal tools, we try to make something open source so we can learn from outside, get feedback from outside, and also inside have some sort of like share component collection between all the different projects with filter, service, directive. But there were a few problems. You know, there are other few teams who work in Twitter with Angular, and every team is a solution, but there was nothing like to share components between all the different teams, to share the architecture, or just like share all the different experience by using Angular inside a big organization like Twitter. So in November, me and other like few guys, we just create an Angular group inside Twitter. And one of the main goals was like, okay, let's make a collection, a UI component collection, across all the different teams. And also, weekly meet for like few hours and just collaborate with each other, have some sort of like community, Angular community internal Twitter. And it went great, went pretty great. We released internally ngTwitter that is, it just starts with ngTasty as an open source core base. And on top of that, we build all the custom solution that we need internally. And in the end, we name it ngTwitter. So when I start building ngTasty, you know, there are a few things like what I want to do, what I want to this collection UI component. And I said, okay, I want something easy to reuse, easy to test, easy to benchmark. And easy to reuse, easy to test. There are many articles, video, talk to learn about it. And pretty much almost nothing about benchmark for Angular. I was like research around, going to the Angular repo and say, looking all the different code. And at one point, I discovered late in October benchpress inside the Angular 1 repo. I said, wait, this thing looks pretty good. So I started using the old version, and now I'm going to show also some live demo of the new version. And the problem, I asked this question, like, okay, I used some benchmarking tool in the past. They are kind of rough. It's not really easy to write benchmark. But when I started using benchpress, I say, that actually is pretty easy. So it's pretty easy way to test performance test with the benchpress. And the only thing is like there is some repeated manual work to create a benchmark. Like you need some scaffold file for just running everything, and it's kind of boring. So I said, okay, I'm already focused to create a good code, to write a lot of tests. I don't have time to write a benchmark. So I said, how I can make faster that thing, faster write benchmark. So in the end, I create a YAML generator named just generator benchpress. So you're doing npm install generator benchpress, and you have a YAML generator that you can just do your benchpress and the name of the benchmark you want to create. And what actually does is scaffold all the file you need to run in this benchmark. So we have the protector file, because benchpress, as Jeff this morning said, runs with the protector, the new one. So you have the configuration file, and you have in this case study, we have the ngTasty index HTML with all the HTML you need and the JavaScript, and the spec benchmark file with all the action like destroy this element, recreate, and do that again. So let's see actually how is this code. So I'm here, I'm in the ngTasty repo. There are all different components, filter, service. I'm going to the benchmark folder. Inside ngTasty, I think it's good enough. Okay. So there are the HTML file. The HTML file is just like you select the case you want benchmark, and for this directive, I'm going to destroy the element and recreate it a few times. And this is just a basic case, like bind a text variable with just hello perf. Pretty simple. And here the destroy DOM and the create DOM function. And in the spec file, instead, there is the action that I'm actually doing, destroy the DOM and recreate the DOM. And BenchPress is going to loop in that a few times and get all the different results. So let's see is actually how does it look. It's here. Here we go. So here I select the case one. There is a low perf. What I'm going to do is just like destroy and recreate, destroy and recreate. I mean, I don't want to do that manually. So I'm going to take BenchPress and just running that for me. So BenchPress is going to run. On the background, there is Protractor that is running the case and just do it a few times. Yeah. And here we're just the 1.3 milliseconds. It was a very basic benchmark. So this is the minimum. Let's actually doing a real case. In ngTasty, one of the most expensive directive is the table directive. And here there is an implementation of a sorting and pagination table where I have my resource with the header and the rows. I'm passing inside the table directive. And one thing that I want you to focus is on the top. It's wrote watch resource collection. So this is the ngTasty now is in the version 0.5, and lately I give the opportunity to the user to decide the scope watch you want to use to refresh the data inside the table. As before, the default watch was just a deep watch. It was working, was great. But, you know, a deep watch is kind of expensive. So I said, okay, let's give the opportunity to a different API implementation to say, okay, I want to use the quality watch, the collection watch, or the default one in this case is the reference watch. So let's run the test in this case. Let's see how it does work this. So in the background is running the test. It's doing all the different like reference case. After it's going to jump on the collection case. And in the end, the quality, or also as a deep watch. So as we know, the deep watch is pretty expensive. So here on the top right, we have 169 milliseconds of time for scripting. After we have the render time, the amount of garbage collector. And the collection one instead is 9 milliseconds. And the reference is set 7 milliseconds. So what I try to understand by doing this benchmark, when you're doing refactoring, when you try to always add a new feature, new functionality to your directive, it's cool because you need that feature, you write them, but sometimes you say, okay, how is the speed of this new feature? How is compared with another one? And also, for doing the same thing, if I have like an API implementation in 3 different ways, which one is the faster one? Which one I should implement? And by BenchPress, that is very easy to write test, you can actually see very quickly that the reference one is the faster one, of course. The collection is slightly slower, but still it's just 12 milliseconds. And the deep watch is pretty expensive, especially for the amount of memory that they keep. One thing that I want to show is how this test was built. So this test, it's running on the this folder, so I'm always running. So this was the test of the latest master version that is not released yet. And what I'm doing was just like create different case. So the reference case, the collection, the equality, just select the radio button, and there is an ng switch with all the different case. So if you want to build your one, you just have different case study, and you can go one to another and say, and analyze which one is the faster or slower. Here we have the collection one with the resource collection, and in the end, the equality one. In this case, I'm just pointing to the this file. One thing that also the YAML generator does is automatically download a specific version of your Angular, not Angular, your project. So in this way, for example, I'm just taking this version, but if I want to run a different version of Angular, I can just keep a different Angular version in my this folder, in my Bower component, and just run it with a different version. So we saw how you can compare the speed between all the different like API implementation. What about instead is like, I have my feature, I have my directory with does that, and I want to see in the past if I'm actually improving the speed or becoming slower. So this is some measure release of ngTasty, October, December with a 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and the latest one that is not out yet. So I did some benchmark, and when I did, I just created your bench press external. So what it actually does is get the case study from the dist folder and copy it in a new one named ngTasty 0.0-4-0. So what you're doing is specify the version you want to use for that case study. Automatically, the YAML generator is going to download that version, and you can, in a very easy way, switch from one version to another. As we see here, we have the ngTasty folder, the number 3, where inside the Bower component, there is the version 3 of ngTasty. And the same is going to happen for the other, like the 4 is going to contain the 4 one. And all of them, they're going to run to exactly the same table. This is all the tests they was running to, in the end, there is the JavaScript code of the case. So it's running to a big table with 4,000 rows to just try to sorting and paginate that table. The result that I had was actually pretty interesting because if you see on the right, the 0.3 was, all of this is a case for the quality watch. As I said in the beginning, the default version of ngTasty was using a deep watch, so very expensive. Only recently, I changed that to become faster with a collection or a reference watch. So to look in just the quality watch, we have 154 for the 0.3, 121 for the 0.4, and 108 for the latest release, for the 0.5. I say, okay, great, it's getting always faster. And now I did some crazy refactoring, everything gets slow. Say, okay. So this is very good because before releasing a new version that is slower than an old one, I can just run again my benchmark, version by version by version, and stop myself if something is going wrong. Like, okay, something is getting slow, so I can use Batarang or other tool or just investigate, understand why it's going slow, and fix that before releasing to the public for the next measure release. The next case is how my table is compared to third-party solution. And in this case, we have UI grid, so Angular UI grid, ngTable, and ngTasty. And I'm doing the same process. I'm recreating with the Yo bench press external that specific Bower version. So I'm going to take the latest public version for all of them and run all the different benchmark. So in this case, we take Angular UI grid. On the back, we have the UI grid implementation. Of course, each one of them is implemented in a different way, and each one of them has feature that maybe the other does not have. Let's get the latest one. So it's doing the one for ngTable. So we get here, so we have this is 57, this is 44. Here I have a copy of the result that I did this morning. So I'm actually analyzing using ngTasty for the reference one. So this is the default version with ngTasty with a 0.5, that is 9 milliseconds. ngTasty, that is the 0.5.3, the latest version 41 milliseconds, and an Angular UI grade that is 59. So it's pretty good. So what I understood here is ngTasty has not all the functionality and the feature that Angular UI grid and ngTable they have. ngTasty is just pretty much pagination, filtering, and sorting. So if I want a table like that, maybe I can use ngTasty. If I want something with more functionality, more feature, more interesting stuff, I can use ngTable or Angular UI grid. So it could be really. I worked before Twitter. I was working for a different agency, and most of the time when you start a conversation like what library we should use, what ngTable or third-party solution we should use, and sometimes the decision is just taken by I don't know preference or just because you like that guy on Twitter. And here instead we have a more like math result, more specific. You say, okay, let's do some benchmark. Let's see actually how this thing performing. So we say, okay, I want to use Angular Grid because it has that functionality that all the other they don't have. Okay, but what about if they have all the same functionality? I just want to see which one is the faster one. So bench press could be very useful for take in just in a couple of hours an important decision for your project. So to recap, write good code, write a lot of tests is important, but it's also important take care about your performance and writing benchmark. By bench press, you can really have deeply understanding of your performance. And I try to just show three simple cases. Like I wrote a directive, I'm doing 3 different API implementation, I want to see which one is the faster one. I have my directive, I just want to see in last year, on the last 3-4 months, if I'm getting slower and faster. In the end, again, I have my directive. I want to see if I'm going slower or faster with my with other third-party solution. So it's important doing benchmark. You should try, if you want all the code that I show is in the ngTasty repo, you can just take the exactly command that I show in the slide and just re-see again how doing all this, this benchmark and write your own one. So, grazie. Thank you, everybody. And done. Thank you so much.